each operation is different in what they do, but the first thing to do would be to, you could probably do these in tandem, but obviously you do a soil test, a proper soil test, and you address your limiting factors there, and that's not just for pH.
So tackle your key soil constraints.
That's right.
Yeah.
But at the same time you do that, because once you're doing that, it's easier to wean yourself off insecticide and fungicides, because they're two sides that kill, that obviously damage the whole system in supporting it, because obviously you're taking out your insects and you're taking out your biology.
The Biological Farming Roundtable podcast helps farmers explore innovative, low-input, regenerative and profitable farming systems. The Biological Farming Roundtable is sponsored by Nutrisoil, an award-winning biological liquid fertiliser made from a big worm farm. Nutrisoil's purpose is to empower farmers to produce life-enriching food. My name is Nakala Maddock. I work at Nutrisoil. I envisage a future where farmers are rewarded for producing nutrient-rich foods and consumers have this easily available to them. The Hetherington family first started clearing land on the edge of the Salt Lakes at Lake King, WA in 1927. The soils in the region were very challenging, being highly sodic to a significant depth with high amounts of magnesium. Some families walked off the land because the conditions were so challenging. Rob took over management of the farm in the 1980s and the crops were struggling. At times Rob had 80 to 90% screenings in barley and his pastures were full of barley grass and capeweed. Rob knew something was amiss, and after researching nutrition for his wife and young family, who were regularly sick, he found nutrition and biology to be the answer for his family, and soon realised it was also the answer for his soil. In this episode, Rob talks with me and agroecologist David Hardwick about the steps he took in addressing his major soil constraints, reducing his sites in the system, and using nutrition, biology and diversity to turn his soils around. Hello everyone, Nakala here from Nutrisoil. I'm here with David Hardwick, agroecologist. We're in Lake King in WA. We've just had a biological farming roundtable teaching people about soil health. And our host for the day was Rob Hetherington. So we were at Rob's place. Rob, how are you?
Pretty good, thanks.
Yeah, good. Rob, tell us about your farm.
16 kilometres of north of Lake King in what's called the Lakes area. That's called that because of the Salt Lakes. So our home farm borders on the edge of Salt Lake, so it's we're dealing with high sodium soils. Then the other part of the farm is on the gravel soils with some clay mixed in with there and a bit of sand.
And this country, Rob, was cleared for farming in the early 20th century, is that correct, or they started to clear it?
Yeah, I believe it was around about 1927 the area was first opened up, and that was the area on the edge of the Salt Lakes, because obviously had the big salmon gum trees, and so you used to be able to grow crops a lot better on their soils without trace elements, but obviously they had the sodium to deal with. There was a guy by the name of Tickle who actually put the wind up a lot of farmers here just after the Depression years, because he said this area couldn't be farmed because of the high sodium, and some people actually walked off, but we've just learned how to deal with it now, because you can deal with it.
Yeah, manage it and keep going. So you took over the place from your old man. What year was that? Sort of how long you've been in charge of the ship?
Well, basically, as soon as I got married, my father couldn't leave quick enough, so I took over when I was 24, and that was about 1982, I think it was. So I took over managing the farm then. Yeah.
And you've had a couple of big soil challenges over your time, managing the property and taking it to the next generation. What's probably some of the biggest soil challenges you've had to face and deal with through your time?
Well, first of all, it started out with water running off the property when we had sheep. You get an inch of rain and the water would run off, so I started putting contours or big interceptor banks across to keep the water there. That was the right thing at the right time. but knowing what I know now that things are different now and rain infiltrates the soil. So sodium is a big issue, sodium at depth. It's caused lots of mischief.
Yep, and you've got some high magnesium soil types as well.
Yeah, high magnesium, high sodium, and a little bit of high potassium as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just learned how to deal with all that.
And a lot of that was focusing on cation balances and particularly getting calcium numbers up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, calcium being the major player there when I learnt about the cation exchange capacity of the soils.
And that really, you saw positive changes in soil structure and sort of soil function from that approach?
Yeah, huge changes. Got a lot more air into the soil. Big difference in the root growth. Sodium levels dropping away. I mean, sometimes, in the odd year we might get 80-90% screenings in our barley just because of what sodium was doing. Well, it seems to be a thing of the past now.
Rob, taking it back, Shelley and I stayed here last night. Thank you for having us and cooking us a wonderful meal. You didn't cook, actually. Judy did. Thanks for having us. You showed us.
I cooked your breakfast, bro.
You did, and it was wonderful. You showed us your family history video, and you were actually part of clearing that land back then.
Yeah, I had the privilege of being here and helping my father clear the last 1,000 acres of property, well, the other block that we've got over there, and that was predominantly gravel country with some clay in there as well. So yeah, I know what it's like to clear land, clean up mallee roots and pick rocks and put fires through and, do all those sorts of things.
So the kids there were given an axe, no shoes on, just chipping away.
Well, that's how my father started out as a little boy. When they first come out here, they had two brothers. They had a little tomahawk each, and they'd be cutting the saplings down. So
back then, how would you grow a crop? So once the clearing had been done, tell us about the farming back then.
In my time or my father's time?
Your time.
Well, generally it always rained around Easter time, so you go in with your first initial ripping up, and then you'd obviously wait for the weeds to germinate, then you go and cultivate it again, work it back, so you might have to do that once or twice. And then sometimes, like, we went and picked a whole lot of mallee roots because we had some big mallee roots we didn't want to put through the combine. Then we seeded it. Sometimes we wouldn't finish seeding until the end of June, which obviously in today's climate is way too late.
Smaller tractors back then.
Yeah, a lot smaller, yeah.
Much fertiliser going out or none?
Oh, we used to use just straight superphosphate. I can't remember what we used to put out, 80 to 100, or would have been kilos, probably 80 kilos, I think, something like that. So it's pretty simple, really, just superphosphate. Used to always pickle our wheats and barley. We didn't use any nitrogen at all, so we just it used to be just a pasture rotation, so you'd crop every, usually 3 years, then 2 years of pasture. So,
and the pastures had some legumes, some clovers and things in it.
Some of them did, yeah. Talking about the high sodium here on the home country, we used to have a lot of barley grass. And then you get the capeweed, which is barley grass and capeweed, is an indication of your calcium deficiency. So yeah, barley grass is terrible stuff to have with those who know what it's like to get in the sheep's eyes and in the wool. And we used to have the trefoil burr down on the, used to get in the wool and all the rest of that, so terrible.
When did you realise that calcium was a real key weak link in your soils and in this farming systems here, and that it was a key part of the solution, if not the main foundation? What year was that, and how did you come across that?
Well, initially there was, I sort of started to get a bit of an inkling or a hearing of it, but a group of us from Australia and predominantly Western Australia went across to America, and we visited some prominent biological consultants over there, Arden Anderson and then Neil Kinsey. And then the next year we had a school here, and I've done a few schools with Neil Kinsey, so reading his book and just learning more about the importance of the ratios in the cation balance. So that's where it all started.
And that focused you, that gave you a bit of a framework to sort of work on and develop the different soils and get soil tests and start to get that balance and tweak things.
Yeah, well, it's pretty scary looking back on the soil test now, huge amount of hydrogen on the acid soils. Then obviously a huge amount of magnesium and sodium on the alkaline soils, and it's all deficient in calcium. So that was the first place I started working on the soils, by doing that, and then obviously doing other things to tweak it after that.
So rates of lime and gypsum on these soil types, what sort of rates are you putting out to get that balance?
Well, I was always taught to do small amounts more often. So initially I started out with a tonne to the hectare, and then after that I'd do a soil test, and then I'd follow it by doing no more than half a tonne to the hectare of lime, and that usually was a 3-way mix with a bit of gypsum, carbonate and a hydroxide calcium mixed in there.
Yeah, get different reactivities.
Because in my case with the alkaline soils, I was chasing the soluble calcium because they had the high pH soils.
You weren't necessarily trying to change pH, you just wanted that ratio.
That's right, I just wanted to rearrange what the pH was made up of.
Yeah,
yep.
Get that magnesium down and the calcium up. Yeah,
and the sodium down. Yeah.
So that was in the early 90s when we called it biological farming back then. Is that when it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was just the coin was phased, biological farming. You chuck a bit of molasses in and a few other things, and that's what it was called.
White sugar and urea. That's
done all that.
Yeah.
Sugar in the air cedar and
that's those early days of the biological farming times. Yeah, so
sure was.
So you saw improvements through that decade and into the 2000s through that cation, getting that calcium in and rearranging things.
Obviously more areas had a quicker improvement, but other areas since then I've come back and started to address those soils which obviously had a higher magnesium. So they just needed more calcium there, and there's been a big improvement across the whole farm. Like getting air in the soil, in the roots. That's the first thing that's most obvious. Just the amount of root growth you get,
and water infiltration, obviously.
Yeah, water infiltration. That's right. Yeah. And then you get the earthworms.
And the whole show goes in a positive way because you get more roots, so you get more growth, and that stimulates more.
Yeah, just the colour of the soil, the depth of the A horizon getting deeper, and then you get the different soil organisms in there. Just keeps increasing. So.
I'm interested, Rob. What made you start looking for something else? So you were using superphosphate. And then you've gone looking and found out that calcium was really key to your system. What made you go looking? Were things working? Were things not working?
Well, even as a young farmer, I used to drive around and I used to look at the soil, and there's huge rhizoctonia areas and areas which had lots of barley grass, and then over there it was something else, and I just see this is not right. It's all uneven and there's a huge production loss, and I just had this innate sense that something wasn't right even then. So I guess what started it all was that, I've said this before, my wife doesn't mind me saying it, but I got sick of having a sick wife, and then I started looking for some nutritional remedies for her, and that led me on to tying that in with nutritional remedies for the soil, so they go hand in glove. And you can't separate the two.
Human health and soil health.
That's right. Yeah, you can't separate it. Yeah.
So after sort of, getting that sort of started to be sorted, I guess we could say, and getting some improvements there, did you look at then start looking at other nutrients or trace elements and things? Did that sort of start to come into your thinking at some point?
Well, obviously, after addressing the calcium, and then I started to address the phosphate. Well, I sort of did that to start with as well as calcium, and then come back around and start addressing the trace minerals, copper, zinc, manganese, and then you got the minor trace elements like molybdenum and a few other things like that. And then after I've done that, don't get me wrong, I'm still doing it. I've only got a long way to go to get it to where it ideally should be, but just putting in some biological food sources to keep feeding the biology to make everything keep working all the time.
Rob, when did you start using nitrogen?
Yeah, well, my father, we never used to use nitrogen, but I guess I just started sort of getting into the compound fertilisers like the MAP, and that was the first introduction. And then it wasn't until when I started going all cropping that I realised I needed more nitrogen. So then I started in the, I used to use a bit of UAN.
Granuloc, did you use any of those Granuloc type products?
Well, no. Well, actually, yeah, I did. I have used granular sulfate ammonia, top dress that out. Seems to be that I'd always, as long as I can remember, I've had a mixing tank, even in the early years, and dissolved up sulfate ammonia mixed together, sulfate ammonia and urea, and then urea. So, yeah, I've been doing that for quite a while now, just dissolving that up and then spraying that out, because I learnt the hard way in the early years, you know, when you're ploughing in stubbles, that carbon-nitrogen ratio can bite you real big, because nothing grows without nitrogen, because to form a new cell, at the nucleus of every cell is nitrogen. So it's pretty important to have it, and you don't go anywhere without it, no matter what form it comes in.
So that C to N and that lag of nitrogen supply that you get from that high carbon load. And
yeah, I mean, you know, as much as I hate to say it, we still seem to have to sort of rely on some industrial nitrogen to a certain extent. You just get smart in how you use it, and you mix a carbon source with it. But once you start to see those yellow leaves, the older leaves on the plant, where you know you're in trouble, then once that starts to happen, that's when usually the diseases come in and all sorts of other problems. So there is nitrogen is necessary there for the health of the plant.
It's a balancing act.
Yep.
So you went to 100% cropping, and obviously you brought in nitrogen to help.
Well, the 100% cropping come about because those years when we had the stockpile, sheep weren't worth anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to love my sheep, but I grew to hate them. That was after having them for 10 years too long, so I sold them, moved into continuous cropping. And I think even I remember the first year I did it, we probably made just as much cropping, twice as many hectares as what we did, half as many hectares the year before. So that's because I didn't understand what I was doing. So, you know, you had to spend the money to get the results.
Recently you've jumped into plant diversity. So you kind of tackled some of those key chemical and structural constraints of the soil, or you're tackling them and you're working on them. But recently you've been exploring. Today we're out in the paddock looking at some different combinations of things. So what's been your thoughts around bringing plant diversity into the paddocks and into your farming system?
Well, I suppose my first introduction to multi-species was a 5-way mix when we were doing summer cropping. So I did 5 C4 plants in, which would have been millet, sunflower, lab, cowpea, and safflower. And then now I've gone into the winter species, so we're doing seven multi-species now altogether, cereals and legumes. And on second year of doing that now, and it seems to be becoming more common, and I see it as a good thing because with the high nitrogen prices, plus also the diversity you're putting in the soil, the plant health, and I guess it all started because we planted it last year, and then all of a sudden we had someone asking if we were going to harvest it, and we had a market for it. So,
what did you jag ton? What was your ton price that you got for it in the end?
Well, I don't know whether I should be disclosing it, but it's probably not.
No, you don't have to.
No, it's not really a secret. It's $300 a tonne. That's what we settled on at the time, and so you know, the whole paddock didn't go. Well, the parts of it were doing 3 and 4 tonne, but ryegrass was still an issue in parts of it. But we didn't know whether we were going to harvest it, and so I guess it was a pretty good outcome for that anyway. So
as well as getting that soil building
process. Yeah.
So I guess that's the challenge. One of the challenges for you is ryegrass, because if you're doing a multi-species here with problematic areas of rye, then you haven't got a tool in the toolbox in terms of a selective herbicide to help you manage that.
Yeah, well, that is the issue, because obviously what is a herbicide for a cereal, legumes and grasses together, there's different herbicides.
Yep.
So you can't mix the two together and use like the same herbicide. So we use treflan and prosulfocarb. That's what we've settled on at the moment. But if you've got ryegrass there, you've got to really deal with the ryegrass before you get a crop, because otherwise you won't get much of a crop.
And we're in a dual crop there at the end of the day, which is fava beans and canola down the front there, where you've planted them in alternate rows. You get a dual crop going.
Well, last year was the first year we started doing dual crop, companion crops, call it what you like. We did chickpeas, canola, that was even 3 years ago, lupins, canola last year, and this year we got fava beans and canola, and lupins and canola as a dual crop. Obviously, the challenge there is same thing, chemicals. So you've got to be picking your soil types to do it, because you don't want to be overtaken by a broadleaf or grass.
Because you can't control.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Where do you see the future going with these dual crops? Do you see them getting traction and being part of the commercial sort of harvesting sequence in the farm?
I see that it's an ongoing thing, because as I was saying before, you can grow canola without the nitrogen. Makes sense to me, because the plant can express itself on whatever soil type it's on. So what fits one soil type for one plant might not fit another.
So having the two different crops in there in some areas of the paddock, soil types, they'll dominate and the other one will dominate.
And, I think it's a mindset more than anything, because some people probably might not be bothered because of the work involved in grading it out at harvest time. But, you should just tell yourself that, how am I going to get around this and to solve the problem? So you just sort of resolve yourself to the fact that you're going to do it. Yep. So it's not a real big deal to grade it out, but I think it's the way of the future anyway.
And the health of the plants, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, well, I haven't personally experienced it, but I've heard others say that if you put a brassica with a fava bean, that's just one example, you'll lessen the disease of chocolate spot, because obviously people who grow fava beans know that they're continually always spraying a fungicide on it, so that's a win-win situation for me.
And we didn't see any spot today in the paddock at all. Well-sized plants and...
Yeah, no, the plants are looking really healthy, and
it's a wetter year too. So.
Yeah, I would say if it's not there now, well, it's not going to be an ongoing problem. So,
touch wood.
Digging up between those rows, we were finding that those roots were spreading across. So those two plants were connecting. What do you think's going on there?
Well, plants obviously are exploring all the time, so they're connecting with each other, and the soil's allowing the roots to actually go across there and to reach out to each plant.
Do you think that there's going to be any benefit in that?
Well, if you cover the whole soil area with plants, yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
It's called the Telstra effect, isn't it? When you connect things up properly and everything's working, then everything goes a bit better. Yeah. Sorry, Optus effect. We don't win a favour one telephone company overnight.
Optus doesn't work.
So I guess, Rob, where do you see the farms and the soil? Like, how far along to the potential improvement do you see to hold these paddocks? Like, you've been on the game a long time now. How much more work do you think Dan's going to have to get it sorted?
Well, as I've always said, that if you think you've arrived, well, you got to be careful, because you can never rest on your laurels, because the soil can quickly go back, and that's what a farmer is. We're a husbandman of the actual soil, and so we're always got to be addressing a continuing fertility plane to keep going forward, to keep improving the system.
And it's a complex system, and it goes up and down, it fluctuates, so you've always got to be on the ball, keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, it's pretty complex. I mean, like, biology likes to eat food. So, however we do it, we need to keep feeding that biology and keeping them happy all the time.
We talk about the chemical, the physical and the biological, and we talked about the steps that you took today to achieve those three. Do you want to tell us what you think is the important steps for your farm? What was first, second, third?
Probably the chemistry is the first bit I worked on, and with the chemistry, you're supplying some of the essential cations there, the nutrients, and it allows the oxygen to get in because of the calcium-magnesium ratio. And so if you let the oxygen in, well, then you improve the biology, which improves the physical. Well, the physical is actual soil, isn't it?
But that triggered that change and chain of events to go on a positive pattern.
Yeah. But as I said before, you can't rest on your laurels. You always got to be out there digging and observing and just going with the change that the soil is taking the direction in. You've got to be monitoring it all the time.
So your next step was the biologicals. Tell us what you've done in the biological space.
Well, in the early days, we used to use molasses and sugar and fish, but yeah, basically I've sort of keep it pretty simple now. I have used humates with fertilisers, but basically it's just fulvic acid with the liquid. Any time we run out the paddock with a boom spray, we're always putting fulvic acid out. I do.
What sort of rates you put it out?
100 mils each time.
Yep.
That's about 80 cents a hectare, 85 cents. Fish, I've started out with fish probably over 10 years ago now, so I've always just kept with that because I believe that it's part of the reason why I've got earthworms across the whole farm is because spraying the fish because they like the proteins in there.
And where are you getting that fish from?
Comes from Port Lincoln, South Australia.
Powdered, dried fish?
No, that's fish hydrolysate.
So it's a liquid hydrolysate?
Yeah. So my standard brew is that usually always it's fish and fulvic in the boom spray with whatever I'm putting out, even chemicals. And then when I'm putting the dissolved urea out, it's fish, fulvic and urea. Now I've started using some kelp. And I've even started...
a liquid product, or you buy that as a powder?
No, it's a powder, but it dissolves up very easy.
Yep.
And there are varying sorts of kelp, which some dissolve easily and some don't.
Australian kelp, or without giving a brand away? Australian kelp?
No, I believe it's not, I don't think. Yeah. I think it's just how it's formulated, as to how it mixes easily.
Yeah.
And then... what else? Yeah, that's right, amino acids. So I've just started trying that now.
So again, that powdered aminos that you dissolvable solid sort of stuff.
They are a bit finicky to mix up. So then I use liquids. Like I get liquid from a common WA company that makes up. They use the trace element sulfates, and they put your carbons and your kelp and your fish and all those other things in there. So I get that made up as a liquid.
Yep.
And that goes down the tube with UAN at seeding time. And then we add a little bit of extra kelp to that.
Coating your seed at all, or using?
Seed dressing. Well, I tried various seed dressings. I've sort of settled on Nutrisoil and fish. I don't know why, but that's just what we settled on. We've got it all set up, so we just carry our own old boom spray tank around, our computer spray tank. We have the water in that, and we just have a granny pot, and we have the shuttles close by, so it's made to be a portable unit. And so we just put that up the auger, 5 litres each to the tonne.
So Rob, there's a bit too doing a custom biological agronomy program, like what you're doing, is, there's a little bit to it. You've got to think it through and design the program for yourself and get the different ingredients. And as you highlighted today, when you want to do multi-species and customise your blend, you've got to get the seed and organise it and mix it at the rates you need to, etc. So there's a bit of work in going down this regenerative approach, if I can use that word.
That's right, David. It's definitely an effort there. I mean, you've got to have that mind shift. You want to actually do that, and it probably could add an extra week to seeding. But I believe that if you're going to go down this road and you want an outcome, well, you've got to be prepared to put the extra effort and time into it. And you just tell yourself that that's what you're going to do. So you obviously try to streamline it to make it more
efficient as you can.
Workable, so you can actually do it. Yeah. But I mean, it's obviously not for the faint-hearted. But then sometimes they get to a stage like humans seem to for things to get worse. No, for things to get better, they have to get worse. So they're actually forced into doing something.
Bit of pain for long-term gain.
Yeah. So, you depends on how observant you are in looking around to see what's happened. You realise you have to change your direction in what you're doing.
So if we think about other broadacre guys in the, dry-fed, rain-fed cropping in Australia, 100% croppers, because you're 100% cropping, what might be your first steps, top two things you'd suggest to someone, wherever they are, different soil types, etc., what might be that are thinking to make some changes, what might be top of your list?
Well, I guess it depends on, each operation is different in what they do, but the first thing to do would be to, you could probably do these in tandem, but obviously you do a proper soil test, and you address your limiting factors there. And that's not just for pH.
So tackle your key soil constraints.
That's right. Yeah. But at the same time you do that, because once you're doing that, it's easier to wean yourself off insecticide and fungicides, because they're two sides that kill, that obviously damage the whole system in supporting it, because obviously you're taking out your insects and you're taking out your biology.
So that's step 2?
Well, they'd work in tandem with the first step.
Yeah, pretty close together.
So lower the biocides and address the key soil constraints.
Yeah.
That's often a worry. People will ask, how do I know my soil's ready to take off those insecticides?
Well, that's why you've got to start working on your chemistry first. And then, I guess if you've been used to using it all the time, it's a bit like insurance. You're scared to not keep using it, so you've got to try a paddock without it. Monitor your plants, increase your sugar levels in your plant by observing that with a refractometer. So I think by cutting out your sides first and you haven't addressed the chemistry is probably the wrong approach.
What about the decision if you are thinking of using a fungicide, so you've said some fungal attack on your leaf?
Well, if it's that bad, you obviously need to do it if you're going to lose your crop. But sometimes it can be looks worse than what the actual outcome is. It totally depends on the area that you're in, whether you're in a more marginal area or whether you're in a wet area, for the funguses to keep increasing. Sometimes you just have to allow time for nature to actually override the occasion for the plant to come good to give itself the resistance to the disease that you've got.
Do you think using nutrition and biology and your diversity of plants, that your need for considering using a fungicide is reducing?
Well, we've never really been a big user of fungicide anyway, but definitely the more plants you got together, with them all working together in tandem and a synergy, you're going to have a lot less reliance on fungicides. I guess it's no different to us as humans, because like if you have a antibiotic, you've got to have a probiotic to start increasing your biology in your gut. So it's the same in the soil. If you keep taking out the biology all the time, you've got to put something back in to support it.
You talked about the start at the very beginning where you were having lots of barley grass and capeweed and you were having to use a lot of chemicals. So that's when you went looking for the answer and you found calcium really helped with that. Have you found that you've been able to reduce your chemical usage by addressing your nutrition and biology?
That's a difficult one. I still use the same amount of knockdowns to obviously kill the weeds. So I wouldn't say that we have reduced that there, but we don't use insecticides and fungicides. So because I believe they're the first two that are easy to manage, fungicides and insecticides, but herbicides, that's the last that's always hardest to get rid of if we ever can get rid of them, which you probably can, but obviously whether we can do that in our soils that we've got or, in our system that we're doing, I don't know. But I mean...
What do you think about a crop roller, crimper? You thought about keeping yourself
busy?
I've
thought about it, but, obviously you've got to grow tall plants and you've got to have the thick stems and whether that will work with ryegrass and all of those things. So...
challenge yet to be tackled.
Yeah, I mean, there's new things on the horizon. There's new ways of looking at things, but for the meantime, we still rely on some herbicides.
And you're putting out the fish and the fulvic acid with that each time?
Most times, yeah. Well, I usually put out like 2 litres with a knockdown or 1 litre. I use it actually as a crop oil in lieu of a crop oil.
So surfactant type thing.
Yeah, I put that with the knockdown herbicides, and I put a little bit with the preceding herbicide. Then I put some extra or come back and finish off when I do the foliars with the urea and the biologicals. Put some fish with that, and that's the last lot I put out.
And there's plenty of competition in those covers and the dual crops. When you sow it, when you get it right, there's not a lot of room for the weeds. I mean, I know ryegrass is a bit of an issue in patches, but you get that competition effect from your multi-species or your cover crop plants.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because we're still trying to work out the best approach, whether we put it in first, dry, and then when the rains come, the multi-species gets ahead before the temperature gets too low for the ryegrass to germinate. I still believe it's important to put a bit of fertiliser out to give it the energy. So, it's just how long the system will keep going before we actually can work out how to improve it, whereby the ryegrass is the weaker plant. I guess that's the challenge.
Get it to the point where it's a minor part of the system.
Yeah, because if ryegrass is pretty competitive, we obviously we can see that we're not doing something right, because the ryegrass, like with all wheats, they're trying to improve the system. They're trying to change the condition of the soil. They're bringing a nutrient up to increase in the soil. So we've got to work out what that is.
At the start, you talked about one of your reasons was because you're sick of having a sick wife. How's Judy going now? She used to get all the itises, and obviously what we were doing at that time did help, and we actually gave our children the same. Well, it's actually barley green it was then, so that's from the green leaves of barley, which I believe has got the broadest spectrum of nutrients out of 400 plants, discovered by Japanese.
There was that company in Queensland, what were they called? Safe. They used to sell the barley. You remember them?
Yeah,
We're showing our age here, and I know you're older than me.
No idea. I got no idea.
They weren't the originals, but they
were pretty active, weren't they?
Yoshihide Hagawari, his name was, but he was the first one that came up with it. But once we started feeding that to our children, we had a lot less health issues. And our last one that was born, she was the healthiest out of all of them because she had it. I'll tell you how powerful it was. I must say this because, when you're breastfeeding, you've got the colostrum, and then obviously that comes out in the baby's nappy. You could see the colour it comes out. So anyway, my wife, when she came back from hospital, because she didn't want to have it when she's pregnant, but we know different now that it's a food source, so that would have been all right. But she had half a teaspoon, and obviously went through the breast milk, and come out, and the baby's nappy, and it was green. Wow.
What a good way to end the podcast.
We're talking a lot about mineralising today, but that's an example of it, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I think I've thoroughly enjoyed staying here, Rob. You're very health conscious, serving me up bone broth and all sorts of healthy things. I can see that your whole family is health conscious. You sit together, you eat together, you pray together. It's really lovely.
Thank you.
And it's, I have to say, Rob, I really appreciate you sharing your deep experience in, on this journey of tackling soil health and soil biology and stuff, because that your story is, a lot of the younger fellas that don't know that biological era that I only got the tail end of it, but you lived right through. I mean, there's some important experience in there that I think the young guys will really appreciate when they listen.
Yeah, well, I must say that I've had my workers stick with me through this, because we were one of the first ones in the district to go to liquid behind the air seeder, and the early stages then of setting that up and having a little disc for the stream to go through. And actually, I must say that even then we had the dam water and were calcium nitrate and molasses for the first few days. It worked a treat. Then we'd start getting these blocks, and it'd be underneath the bar for half an hour or so, cleaning all these blocks out. It took us about 2 to 3 years to work it out, and how that actually come about was that after we'd seeded a summer crop, we had a little bit left over in the tank, and we just left it down there at the bottom of the house site. And then I was walking past it one day, and I saw this end of the actual filter. Now, this filter must have been at least a 1/4 inch thick on the end cap. And it just blew the end off. I thought, wow. I said, that's the pressure of biology. And it was then that we worked out what was happening is because the clay in the dam water combined with the calcium and the molasses as a carbohydrate, it was growing, and it's just like forming snot. It just kept blocking up these nozzles. So they were the hard years that we went through.
Yep, there was plenty of those experiences and the white sugar I heard from another old farmer I was lucky enough to work with.
Yeah, well, I've got a story to tell about that as well. We used to use brown sugar, and we put that in we coated the faba beans with that. And, pretty well blocked up the air seeder, and we spent the next day cleaning all the hoses out and stuff like that. And
the next gen are getting a little bit easier.
They
Still
sure
not
are.
solved,
We've sorted it all out. Well, we haven't really sorted it out, but
we've got those important lessons. So, no, thanks for taking the time to share that, because I know everyone will enjoy it. So.
I appreciate it, and thank you for coming here. And, I enjoy telling anyone who wants to listen.
Wonderful, thank you. Please follow the Biological Farming Roundtable podcast. Share it with your friends and networks. I'm Nakala and I work at Nutrisoil, a liquid biological fertiliser made from a big worm farm whose purpose is to empower farmers to produce life-enriching food.